So my name's Jo Robinson and I'm the Director of Teaching in the School of English, and I've been doing that job for a year now, and it's a 3-year position. So the idea is that I can try and work change into the school. When I was asked to be Director of Teaching, I said I would do it if I could be Director of Excellent Teaching. I didn't just want to be kind of putting policy into or rubber stamping things, but I wanted actually a chance to spend some time thinking about how we can improve as a school and improve those practices. And so some of the things that we've done over the last year, and we're still kind of going on with quite a large thinking about curriculum, is we have revamped our academic community module, which is a module that's compulsory for all single honours English students, and which the materials are open for joint honours English students. This is a module that was set up by a predecessor of mine, Matt Green, and has been in operation for a few years now. Was intended to get students to think about what it means to be a student of English and make the sort of transition from sixth form study to university study, which we know is a problematic time, and a time where students can find it difficult to know what the kind of new requirements are and the new needs of university are. So that module's operated for a few years, and it's one of the things we've realised is that one of those key points of transition is actually, yes, partly about the subject, but a lot about the kind of skills that we expect students to have, which they don't necessarily have coming out of sixth form, because they've been being taught to different kinds of agendas and different kinds of goals. So we've revamped academic community this year to make it, to introduce some opportunities for thinking about study skills in the context of English. So it's very much embedding the skills within their within the subject that they're studying. So as part of that, they'll be having weekly lectures covering things like essay writing and how to give presentations and how to make a bibliography and things like that. But also an opportunity in small groups of tutees, so about 8 or 9 students with their personal tutor, to spend some time actually practicing some of that stuff. So thinking about what it means to be an English student, but also thinking about, you know, having an opportunity to do a practice essay, for example, or to peer review each other's essays, or to develop their own marking criteria, which can then lead into a discussion of why we have marking criteria and how it might be useful for them to actually look at it before they got their feedback rather than after they get their feedback. So we're hoping that that's an opportunity for them to kind of really add to their knowledge, add to their understanding of what's needed to be a university student, and so on. So maybe worth mentioning sort of 2 areas that come out of that, which we're covering. So one of the things that we're going to talk about in that module is employability and the importance of them beginning to think about graduate skills, even in year 1, so that although a lot of students sort of start thinking about it at the beginning of year 3, it's something that they need to embed in their sort of career journey. They need to have a career journey really throughout the whole 3 years. So as well as a session on employability within that module, we've also built in week 1, they'll have a session which we're running across the whole of the Faculty of Arts called Beginning My Career Journey, where there'll be the opportunity for them to meet with various people, to talk to students who've done things like placements and so on, and literacy volunteering, which are some of the opportunities that we have within the school, and opportunity to kind of see what possibilities there are over the 3 years of degree, such as the Nottingham Advantage Award, to improve their CV and so on. So that's a kind of roadshow that we're going to run in week 1, in the hope that they do realise what the opportunities are. At the other end of their degree, I've been involved in a project funded by the Higher Education Academy called Embedding Employability in English, which has been aiming to actually get English students to have the opportunity to do placements that aren't just work placements unrelated to their degree, but are actually set up to allow them to reflect on their learning within their degree. So we've got 15 placements this next term students are applying for and being interviewed for, and we'll go out into local creative industries, theatre companies, marketing companies to have that experience and to reflect on that experience. And finally, the other thing that we're going to talk to the students about on the academic community module, and which is one of the kind of key things we do in the school, or we try to focus on in the school, is the issue of getting them to understand that feedback on work is actually part of the teaching process of their work, and to get them to understand that it's a really important part of the process, and also to get staff to really focus on making that an important part of the process through the quality of the feedback that they give. So we've done a couple of things on that within the school, one of which is in response to the Learning Community Forum, where the undergraduate students meet with staff once a term to sort of talk about issues around teaching and learning. One of the things that students said to us consistently over the last few years has been that you get feedback generally at the end of work on a module, and because in a modular system you rarely kind of cover that area again, it feels to students that what they weren't getting was any sense of how to transfer what they'd learnt on one module onto the next module that they were doing. So last year we changed the feedback form so that, as well as saying, it's now kind of got three parts. So we have a feedback, what were the strengths of the essay, feedback, how you might improve this essay, and then we've got a new heading which says feed forward, what can you take forward for the next time. And we've tried to encourage staff to be sort of positive there and to highlight transferable skills from one essay or piece of work that could be taken forward to another. And the students have said that they found that really useful in terms of kind of giving them that nudge to actually think, yes, I have learned something that doesn't just stay on that particular module. So that's great. The other thing that I and a couple of colleagues have been doing with some help from the Teaching and Learning Strategy Fund is to carry out a trial of audio and video feedback. I've done some audio feedback on third year essays, and a colleague has done video feedback, sort of screen capture of feedback on some distance learning modules that we've done, and both of those have been kind of well received. One of the other kind of impetuses behind the academic community module was a way for us as a big school to have better contact with our personal tutees. So the module originally was taught solely in tutorials and solely in effectively in personal tutorial groups. So each of us sees our 9 personal tutees, our 9 first year personal tutees once a fortnight to run the course, which is great in that it gives them a much better relationship with us as a big school than they might once have had. I think that if you do something like academic community, it really does need to include as many people as possible. So you need to get buy-in from staff. It needs to be something that we all can see as being useful. And I think centering it around personal tutees has been a good way to do that, because it's kind of killing 2 birds with 1 stone, in that it's allowing us to build up those personal relationships with tutees, which hopefully then sustain them and us across the 3 years of the degree, but also provides them with a kind of useful overview of the school. But obviously sometimes that means that students are looking at stuff that maybe isn't within your kind of area of teaching, so we get them to do a presentation on taking some of the kind of theoretical ideas from academic community, which might be about kind of how do we identify authority within a text. So we get them to think about journal articles, we get them to think about editing, we get them to think about kind of the process of publication in that. But we say to them, you can do a presentation on that in relation to any text that you've come across so far. So some of them might do it on a drama text, for example, and be giving that presentation to somebody who isn't from the drama part of the school. So you need to be looking at the skills in that rather than the content. And you need to be prepared to kind of spread your net wide in year one in that way, which has been okay. Everybody's kind of taken that on board, actually.